I just mentioned that this is number two to the first tape. Linda Moulton Howe, she's an investigative reporter, and quite often she's on contributes to Coast with George Norrie out of L.A. And these are about the only people that get into telling about UFOs and crop circles. Now then, I want to say, in what's happened to me and the information that I've gotten, I don't know if there's UFOs, but I certainly believe it's possible. People believe in God, but they can't see him, and then they'll adjust their thinking to fit a scenario. Uh, it's ludicrous to me to think there aren't UFOs. And so whether Roswell, where the shootings, this kid, 12 years old, in middle school, shot the two others, and one was taken to Lubbock, and that's a main clue in here. Now then, Roswell, New Mexico, is where the first big, well, it wasn't just that the UFOs were sighted, they actually crashed. Okay, without trying, because it's impossible, Roswell, there's a Roswell in Georgia, outside Marietta, Atlanta. And this Roswell that I'm speaking of fits into the John Bonet. There's a lot of them in the John Bonet. Ramsey, what happened to her? And I believe her father still lives in Marietta, I'm not sure. So I guess, what was I was telling, about the Canadian member of Parliament trying to get people to listen about the cover-ups of UFOs. And back to that, I don't know if these UFOs or not, but I tend to believe there are. And I certainly would not tune it out. The other alternative, if someone has to think about it, you can't just say all these people are crazy. I mean, that is crazy in itself. And it infuriates me, because what kind of thinking would think that? But here's my point, if I can get to it. It's such a, I'll quote somebody else, a daunting task, who helped steal some stuff from, but I won't get into that on this one video. But the alternative is that if it's not UFOs, then what's your government up to? And I could get into a long spiel on that one if I live so long. I'm 75 and I'm in bad health. There needs to be a congressional hearing. And can you imagine, though, here's the thing. The cover-up gets wider and wider. Whether it's your government that's creating the scenarios, or it's UFOs, and what's that got to do with mind control, you'd ask. People tend to try to tune it all out and find an alternative reason. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I meant to make this short, and here's two tapes, and people tend to lose interest if they had it to begin with. Also, there's the retired policeman in Florida who shot a man who was, texting in a movie theater. Now then, the above happenings have been happening way back. The airlines, things happening with the plane and all this, and then the shootings in schools or malls like in Westgate in Kenya. And someone would say, well, what's that got to do with us? Well, it's got plenty. And now then, I've lost my train of thought. The policeman down there in the movie theater. Now then, by itself, if you just take this one by itself, and I don't know his name, but it happened in a theater. And theater was used in the Grand Theater in Aurora, Colorado, with James Holmes, who was totally under mind control and being tortured at this moment. So there's more to the theater being used in some of the shootings and happenings. But I also wanted to mention this one. There was the Tucson, Arizona And right at the moment, I can't remember all to that one, except she was Gifford. Gabby Gifford was a U.S. Congress lady married to astronaut Mark, and then he had a twin brother, Scott Kelly, that does fit in. And there was more in that one. That had a whole bunch of patterns. And there's one that I'm going to leave here. I've been, you know, there's nothing funny about any of it, but there's nothing funny about what's been done to me and my family. Believe me, in my country. And by the way, my mother was born in this country, and that doesn't seem to bother anybody that she was done in either. That was my mom and my dad that loved me very much. I was kidnapped and brought to Moulton, Alabama, and given another name, but I want to finish on this. Alexis Murphy was a young black girl in Livingston, I believe, near Charlottesville. And I'm not going to go into anything else because I don't know if she's alive or dead. They're charging a man, have already charged him with kidnapping and murder. I don't know. I knew from the beginning it was done in patterns. And here's what I was going to say. Her car was found at the Carmike Theater in Charlottesville, Virginia, and that was on September the 3rd. Oh, wow. 13, last year. So he's up for trial. They put a gag on it, and even that gets into putting a gag order on it. And then they, I guess, have him for trial around the 1st of May. But that's totally a mind control one, whether she's dead or alive, you know. The networks, I wanted to say, know that mind control is being used. Now, I want to get back to what I started to say. If you tell this, and it seems you have to get the networks to tell it before anybody will take notice of it or believe it. If you told that mind control is being used, it can be used on anybody. It can throw a football game. It can do anything. It's so gone mass now. It's not just one or two people being knocked off, or you can mass program and put them under mind control, armies, etc., etc. You understand what I'm saying? But to tell it an airliner can go down because the pilot's been put under mind control, or the marshal that's been put there to air marshal to protect you can blow your guts out. People are afraid, and this is part of the fear that's instilled. So they don't want to tell it, and then you get into telling about me, and that's the main problem they're having, is telling about me and what was done. But also, if you told someone, and there was a list of these, specifically Bonnie Saylor back in Huntsville, Alabama, back in 80. I was working for the district attorney's office, Fred Simpson. And she came to me because I worked at the DA's office, and she told me that her husband, Saylor, had top security. He worked for, I don't know, Army Ballistic Intelligence, or for the, I don't remember now. He had top security clearance, worked in a lab. That's where NASA began and is still, Redstone Arsenal Command Center and all that. Very important. But the point is, she came to me and she couldn't get anybody to touch it. And she knew I worked for the DA, and she came to me for help. And I thought, lady, I wrote a book. They wouldn't let it get published. I had antifreeze put in me April 1st of 80. It was a fiasco. I should have died. Instead, they illegally took me across the state line to Huntsville, where Ms. Saylor was talking to me, working for the district attorney, wondering if I could keep up front. I had brain damage. I was told not to talk about it. Now then, I'll get back to Bonnie Saylor, and I'm going to close this video. She gave me the names of, her husband. They were put under investigation, the lab. And her husband, she